Hey guys, tonight we're going to talk about something that sounds like it came straight out of a Tom Clancy novel, but unfortunately for all of us, it's just Tuesday in America. President Trump has decided that Latin American drug cartels should be classified as terrorist organizations, which means the military might finally get to play with their expensive toys for something other than sandcastle demolition in the Middle East. Now you might be thinking, wait, weren't we already fighting drug cartels? And technically, yes, we've been having this awkward dance with cartels for decades. It's been like watching your neighbour's dog dig holes in your yard while you stand there with a strongly worded letter, hoping they'll just stop. Spoiler alert, they didn't stop. They got bigger shovels. According to recent reports, Trump has approved military action against these organisations, and honestly, it's about time someone acknowledged that groups making billions of dollars while turning American cities into something that looks like a zombie apocalypse movie might deserve a little more attention than a stern talking to from the DEA. The cartels have been operating in America with the confidence of a Karen asking to speak to the manager at Target. They've set up shop in our cities, established distribution networks that would make Amazon jealous, and somehow managed to make fentanyl more accessible than affordable healthcare. It's like they looked at our infrastructure and said, you know what? We can do better. But before going any further, why don't you drop a comment and let me know where you're watching from? Because honestly, at this point I'm genuinely curious who's still surprised by the absolute circus that passes for governance these days. Let's talk about how these cartels actually operate in America, because it's honestly more sophisticated than most legitimate businesses I know. These organizations have turned drug trafficking into something that looks like a Fortune 500 company, except instead of quarterly earnings reports, they have body counts, and instead of HR departments, they have people who make problems disappear faster than your motivation on a Monday morning. The cartels have established what can only be described as a vertically integrated supply chain that would make business school professors weep with admiration if it weren't, completely illegal and destroying communities. They control everything from production in Latin America to street-level distribution in American suburbs. It's like if Amazon decided to get into the pharmaceutical business, but with significantly more violence and fewer customer service representatives. In cities across America, cartels have set up distribution networks that operate with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. They've got lookouts, runners, enforcers, and accountants. Yes, accountants. Because apparently even criminal organisations understand the importance of good bookkeeping, which is more than I can say for some politicians I know. The really disturbing part is how they've adapted to American markets. They're not just selling cocaine anymore, they've diversified their portfolio like a hedge fund manager having a midlife crisis. Fentanyl has become their bread and butter because it's cheaper to produce, easier to smuggle, and unfortunately about 50 times more potent than heroin. It's like they looked at the opioid crisis and said, hold my cabeza. These organizations have turned American cities into distribution hubs with the casual efficiency of someone organizing their spice rack. They've got operations running in places that sound like they should be hosting farmers markets, not serving as headquarters for international criminal enterprises. Now here's where things get interesting in that special way that makes you wonder if we're living in a simulation designed by someone with a very dark sense of humor. The idea of using military force against cartels isn't exactly new, but actually implementing it is like finally deciding to use that gym membership you've been paying for since 2019. The military approach to cartel dismantling would involve treating these organizations like the sophisticated enemies they actually are, rather than pretending they're just really enthusiastic entrepreneurs with questionable business ethics. We're talking about groups that have military-grade weapons, communication systems that would make the Pentagon jealous, and operational security that puts most government agencies to shame. But here's the thing about dismantling cartels with military force. It's like trying to kill a hydra with a really big sword. You cut off one head and two more pop up, except these heads have automatic weapons and a really good understanding of cryptocurrency. The cartels have spent decades adapting to law enforcement pressure, so they've basically become the cockroaches of organised crime, if cockroaches had access to surface-to-air missiles. The military option sounds appealing because, let's face it, we've been throwing money at this problem for 40 years, with about as much success as a screen door on a submarine. The Drug Enforcement Administration has been playing whack-a-mole with dealers, while the cartels have been building what essentially amounts to parallel governments in some regions. Military intervention could potentially disrupt their command structures, destroy their infrastructure, and generally make their lives significantly more complicated. It's like upgrading from a fly swatter to a flamethrower when dealing with wasps, except the wasps have been training for this moment and they're really, really angry. So what happens if America actually follows through with this military approach to cartel dismantling? Well, imagine if your local drug dealer suddenly had to worry about drone strikes instead of just avoiding the neighborhood patrol car. The entire dynamic changes faster than a politician's position during election season. First, the immediate effect would be like poking a hornet's nest with a stick made of dynamite. Cartels would likely respond with the subtlety of a toddler having a meltdown in the cereal aisle. We're talking about organizations that have been operating with relative impunity, suddenly facing the kind of pressure that makes tax audits look like gentle suggestions. The supply chains that cartels have spent decades perfecting would face disruption on a scale they've never experienced. It's one thing to adapt to local law enforcement, it's another thing entirely to deal with military operations that can track your movements from satellites and turn your secret compound into a very expensive pile of rubble. But here's where it gets complicated, because everything always gets complicated. Dismantling cartels doesn't automatically solve the demand problem in America. It's like removing all the fast food restaurants and expecting people to suddenly start craving kale salads. The market forces that created this mess in the first place don't just disappear because you've made the suppliers' lives more difficult. What could change is the cost and availability of drugs on American streets. Military pressure on cartels would likely drive up prices and reduce supply, at least temporarily. It's basic economics, except instead of discussing widget production, we're talking about substances that are destroying communities across the country. The real question is whether this approach addresses the root causes or just makes the symptoms more expensive. It's like treating a leak in your roof by putting buckets everywhere, instead of actually fixing the hole. Now for the part that's going to sound like I'm being a pessimistic party pooper at the let's solve drug problems with explosions celebration. The truth is, military action against cartels is probably necessary at this point, but it's also probably not going to be the magic solution that fixes everything overnight. Cartels exist because there's massive demand for their products in America, and they've filled that demand with the efficiency of a well-run corporation, except their customer service department involves significantly more violence. Taking out cartel leadership is like firing the CEO of a successful company. Someone else is going to step up to take that job, especially when the job pays better than most legitimate careers. The real change that could happen if cartels are dismantled isn't just about removing the current players, it's about creating enough chaos and uncertainty in their operations that smaller, less organized groups can't easily fill the vacuum. It's like turning a well-organized criminal enterprise into a free-for-all where nobody knows who's in charge or how anything works. But here's what could actually make a difference. If military pressure on cartels is combined with serious efforts to address demand in America, we might actually see some progress. It's like finally admitting that your weight problem isn't going to be solved by just removing all the donuts from the world. You also have to stop wanting to eat donuts. The cartels have turned drug trafficking into a business model that generates hundreds of billions of dollars annually. They've created employment opportunities in regions where legitimate work pays about as well as a lemonade stand in Antarctica. Military action might disrupt their operations, but lasting change requires addressing the economic and social conditions that make cartel membership look like a reasonable career choice. So here we are, finally ready to treat drug cartels like the sophisticated criminal organizations they actually are, instead of pretending they're just really persistent door-to-door salesmen. Whether this approach works better than our previous strategies remains to be seen, but at least we're acknowledging that the current system has been about as effective as using a chocolate teapot to make actual tea. Stay safe out there, folks, and remember to subscribe if you enjoy watching me explain why everything is more complicated than it looks on the surface. Because apparently, that's what passes for entertainment these days, and honestly, I'm not even mad about it anymore.